The danger does not announce itself. It does not charge, circle, or test you. In the warm, sunlit shallows where light fractures into rippling gold and sand looks harmless enough to nap on, the stonefish exists as an absence of warning. It is not hidden so much as misinterpreted. Coral rubble, a lump of algae, a rock that has been there forever. The ecosystem teaches you to step carefully around moving threats, but the stonefish is a static one, and that is precisely why it works. Evolution did not shape this animal to hunt you. It shaped it to punish contact instantly, and the ocean has few mechanisms more efficient or more unforgiving than that. Stonefish venom is not delivered through pursuit or intention. It is contact venom, a system designed to activate only when pressure is applied. The spines along the dorsal ridge are not hollow needles waiting to strike. They are spring-loaded hypodermic weapons, each spine encased in a venom gland, and engineered to inject toxin only when something heavy enough presses down. A fin, a foot, a hand, a careless step. When weight bears down, the spine pierces flesh and collapses inward, squeezing venom directly into muscle tissue. There is no warning bite, no preliminary pain to signal retreat. The moment of contact is the moment of envenomation, and by the time the nervous system understands what has happened, the chemistry is already at work. The venom itself is a complex cocktail of proteins designed to attack exactly the systems a swimmer relies on to survive. It disrupts nerve signaling, interferes with muscle contraction, and destabilizes blood pressure. Pain is immediate, explosive, and disproportionate to the visible injury. Victims often describe it not as a sensation, but as an event, a sudden overwhelming surge that consumes attention entirely. Muscles around the injection site can seize or weaken, sometimes simultaneously, creating a paradox where the body tries to move but cannot coordinate the effort. In shallow water, where people assume safety, this is where danger escalates. Panic is not a psychological failure here. It is a physiological response to a system suddenly losing control. Swimming is an act of coordination. Legs generate propulsion. Core muscles stabilize orientation. Arms assist balance. The stonefish venom targets this choreography. When a foot is envenomated, the leg may fail partially or completely, turning a simple push off the bottom into a struggle. Pain radiates upward, hijacking focus and accelerating breathing. Heart rate spikes. The body demands oxygen at the exact moment movement becomes inefficient. Even strong swimmers can find themselves flailing in knee-deep water because strength is irrelevant when the signal between brain and muscle is scrambled. What makes this especially cruel is that stonefish do not inhabit dramatic depths or hostile environments. They live where people wade: tidal flats, lagoons, reef edges, shallow coastal shelves warmed by the sun and visited by snorkelers, fishermen, and barefoot swimmers. The habitat itself communicates safety. Clear water, gentle waves, familiar fish darting through coral. The danger feels out of place, which is why it succeeds. Camouflage here is not merely visual, it is contextual. The stonefish looks like it belongs because it does belong, and the ecosystem reinforces that illusion constantly. The fish's body is built to complete the deception. Thick, lumpy skin supports algae growth, sponge fragments, and sediment, making the outline dissolve into the seabed. The coloration mirrors the surrounding rubble so precisely that even experienced divers can mistake it for substrate. Unlike animals that hide by fleeing or flattening themselves, the stonefish hides by refusing to be recognized as alive. It does not twitch. It does not flinch. It does not reposition unless absolutely necessary. Energy conservation is part of the strategy, but so is trust in the venom. The fish does not need to move out of the way. The environment will move for it. This changes the psychology of the seascape. In predator-rich waters, fear is directional. You look outward. You scan the distance. With stonefish, fear is vertical. It is beneath your feet. The ocean floor becomes a minefield where threat is not moving toward you, but waiting for you to move incorrectly. This inversion alters behavior in subtle ways. People hesitate, steps become tentative. Balance shifts. Ironically, this hesitation can increase risk, as awkward foot placement increases pressure duration on a spine, allowing more venom to be delivered. The venom's effects are not confined to pain alone. Swelling can be rapid and severe, constricting tissues and compressing blood vessels. In some cases, necrosis can develop around the wound, as cells deprived of oxygen and overwhelmed by toxins begin to die. Systemic effects may include nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and in rare but documented cases, cardiovascular collapse. Antivenom exists, but its availability is uneven, especially in remote coastal regions where stonefish encounters are most common. Time becomes a critical factor, and yet the injury itself often impairs the victim's ability to move toward help. From an ecological perspective, this venom is not excessive. It is precisely calibrated. Stonefish are slow-moving ambush predators that feed on small fish and crustaceans. They rely on remaining stationary for long periods, often in exposed positions. Without venom, they would be vulnerable to predators, trampling, and displacement. The contact-based delivery ensures that venom is only expended when necessary, conserving resources while maximizing deterrence. Any animal large enough to step on a stonefish is exactly the kind of threat the venom is designed to neutralize quickly. This efficiency reveals something important about evolution in shallow water ecosystems. Space is crowded, visibility is high, escape routes are limited. In such environments, passive defense can outperform speed or aggression. The stonefish does not need to win a fight. It needs to end one before it begins. By turning the act of contact into the act of punishment, it removes the possibility of escalation altogether. There is also a lesson in how the venom interacts with human behavior. Many injuries occur not because people fail to see the fish, but because they assume familiarity equals safety. Shallow water is treated as an extension of land, a place where vigilance relaxes. Footwear comes off. Attention drifts. The stonefish exploits this assumption perfectly. It is not adapted to humans specifically, but human habits align dangerously well with the conditions that trigger envenomation. The aftermath of a sting often reshapes how people perceive the ocean. Survivors describe a lingering sense of distrust toward the seabed, an awareness that beauty and danger are layered rather than separate. This psychological shift mirrors the ecological reality. Coral reefs are not arenas of constant motion. They are systems of patience, where stillness can be as lethal as speed. The stonefish embodies this principle more completely than almost any other marine animal. Even after the immediate crisis passes, recovery can be slow. Nerve damage may persist. Sensitivity can linger for months. The body remembers the chemistry long after the venom itself has been neutralized. From an evolutionary standpoint, this extended impact reinforces avoidance. A predator or intruder that survives the initial encounter is unlikely to repeat the mistake, and the stonefish gains protection not just through pain, but through memory. In the broader context of marine defenses, contact venom is relatively rare, but where it appears, it is devastatingly effective. It shifts the burden of awareness entirely onto the environment. Instead of advertising danger through bright colors or warning displays, the stonefish erases itself. The responsibility to avoid harm lies with the one who steps. This strategy thrives in ecosystems where camouflage is already dense and visual noise is high. Against a backdrop of coral, rock, and living textures, the absence of movement is the ultimate disguise. Standing in shallow water, it is tempting to believe that threats announce themselves. That danger swims, lunges, or bites. The stonefish contradicts that narrative completely. It teaches that the ocean's most severe punishments are often triggered by ordinary actions performed in the wrong place. A step, a shift of weight, a moment of inattention. Muscles do not fail because they are weak, but because chemistry has turned them off at the source. In this way, the stonefish is not just an animal, but a rule of the reef made flesh. Look down, move deliberately. Assume that stillness can be alive. The ocean does not need to chase you to hurt you. Sometimes it only needs you to step where you should not. The reef narrows without warning. What begins as open blue water folds inward into a maze of coral ribs, overhangs and shadowed cracks where light thins and sound seems to dull. In these corridors, movement is careful by necessity. Fish compress their bodies to slip through. Predators slow down, trading speed for precision. It is here, in spaces that punish panic and reward control, that sea snakes are most effective. They do not dominate the reef through aggression or spectacle. They dominate it through quiet shutdown. A sea snake does not need a dramatic strike. Its bite is small, almost dismissible by appearance alone. 2 fine punctures, sometimes barely visible, delivered with a motion so fast it often goes unnoticed until it is already over. There is no tearing, no thrashing, no prolonged struggle. The venom is neurotoxic in design, meaning it interferes directly with how nerves communicate with muscles. In simple terms, it turns down the volume on the signals that tell the body how to move. The brain still issues commands, but the muscles no longer receive them clearly. Strength does not vanish instantly. It leaks away quietly, steadily, until movement becomes effortful and then impossible. This is what makes sea snake venom so dangerous in confined reef environments. Paralysis is not an on or off switch. It is a gradient. At first, prey may continue swimming, unaware that its coordination is already compromised. Muscles respond a fraction of a second slower. Turns widen. Fin beats lose symmetry. These subtle failures are magnified in tight spaces where escape depends on precision. A corridor that required careful navigation moments earlier now becomes a trap, because the body can no longer perform the fine adjustments needed to avoid contact with coral walls. Breathing is where the shutdown becomes critical. Fish rely on constant rhythmic muscle contractions to move water across their gills. As neurotoxins disrupt these muscles, oxygen exchange falters. The prey is not suffocating in the dramatic sense. Water still flows, gills still open and close, but efficiency drops, and the animal enters a state of oxygen debt. Panic accelerates oxygen demand at the exact moment delivery is failing. This mismatch is lethal. Weakness spreads faster, not slower, because stress amplifies the toxin's impact. Sea snakes evolved this strategy for hunting prey that lives where ambush is difficult and prolonged chases are inefficient. Reefs are crowded and three-dimensional. Speed is limited by obstacles. A venom that disables rather than overwhelms allows the snake to minimize energy expenditure while maximizing certainty. Once the bite lands, the outcome is no longer dependent on pursuit. The environment finishes the job. The snakes themselves are exquisitely adapted to this lifestyle. Their bodies are laterally flattened, forming a paddle-like tail that allows efficient propulsion through water. Lungs extend much farther along the body than in terrestrial snakes, providing buoyancy control and supplemental oxygen storage. Specialized valves close the nostrils underwater, and cutaneous respiration through the skin allows limited gas exchange directly from the water. These adaptations let sea snakes remain submerged for extended periods, waiting patiently in reef corridors where prey traffic is predictable. Venom delivery is precise. The fangs are short compared to those of many terrestrial venomous snakes, but this is an advantage underwater. A long fang risks breaking or misaligning in dense coral. Short fangs deliver venom reliably with minimal penetration depth, reducing resistance and allowing a quick release. The bite is optimized for efficiency, not drama. In many cases, the snake releases immediately after envenomation, conserving venom and avoiding retaliation. The prey's fate is sealed without further effort. What follows is a slow-motion collapse that is difficult to perceive from the outside. The fish may still appear intact, still alive, still moving, but its ability to control its own body is unraveling. Muscles fatigue rapidly because they are firing inefficiently. Lactic acid builds. Reflexes dull. In narrow reef channels, even a minor loss of control means collision. A fish that bumps coral damages its scales and skin, increasing drag and further impairing movement. Each contact compounds the problem. The reef itself becomes an accomplice. Coral formations are not smooth. They are abrasive, angular, and unyielding. As prey scrapes against them, injuries accumulate. Bleeding attracts secondary predators, but often the sea snake remains the primary beneficiary. It follows at a measured pace, confident that time is on its side. Unlike predators that must maintain pressure, the snake can afford patience. The venom is doing the work internally. Paralysis also alters buoyancy. Fish regulate their position in the water column through swim bladders and muscle adjustments. As muscle control deteriorates, buoyancy becomes unstable. Prey may drift upward uncontrollably or sink toward the reef floor, neither of which favors escape. In tight corridors, vertical movement is constrained. A fish that sinks cannot easily push off the bottom if its muscles no longer respond properly. A fish that rises may become wedged against overhangs, unable to reverse course. This strategy is especially effective against reef fish that rely on burst speed and agility rather than endurance. Many reef species evolved to make rapid dashes between cover, assuming that predators either miss entirely or give up quickly. Neurotoxic venom invalidates this assumption. The initial escape may succeed, but the cost is deferred. Weakness arrives after the chase would normally be over. By the time the prey realizes something is wrong, there is nowhere left to go. Sea snakes are not reckless hunters. They select environments that amplify their advantage. Narrow passages, coral fingers, rubble slopes, and seagrass edges all provide structural complexity that limits prey options once paralysis begins. Open water is less favorable, as drifting prey may be lost to currents or scavenged by other predators. In confined spaces, outcomes are predictable. The reef becomes a controlled arena where every exit is a bottleneck. From a physiological perspective, the venom's neurotoxic components bind to receptors involved in nerve signal transmission, preventing muscles from responding to neural commands. This does not cause immediate unconsciousness. Awareness may persist even as the body fails, which further intensifies stress responses and accelerates metabolic collapse. The prey is alive long enough to experience the consequences of losing control, but not long enough to recover. Sea snakes themselves are remarkably resistant to their own venom, an adaptation necessary in an environment where bites may occur accidentally during mating or territorial interactions. Their immune systems neutralize venom components efficiently, allowing them to coexist with a chemical weapon that would otherwise be lethal. This resistance also allows them to prey on other venomous animals, including toxic fish, without significant risk. Despite their lethality, sea snakes are not aggressive toward humans. Bites to people are rare and often occur when snakes are handled or trapped. However, the same principles apply. The wound may appear minor. Pain may be delayed or minimal. Symptoms can develop hours later, including muscle weakness, difficulty breathing, and paralysis. In water, these effects are especially dangerous. A diver or swimmer who loses muscle control does not need to drown in the traditional sense. They simply lose the ability to keep themselves afloat or to coordinate breathing. The quiet nature of this shutdown is what makes it so insidious. There is no cinematic struggle, no violent thrashing, just a gradual failure of systems that are usually taken for granted. Movement becomes unreliable. Breathing becomes laborious. Panic accelerates decline. In a reef corridor, where space is already limited, this sequence leaves no margin for error. Ecologically, sea snakes play a critical role in regulating reef fish populations, particularly species that shelter deep within coral structures where other predators struggle to reach. By specializing in these environments, they prevent any single species from dominating the reef interior. This maintains biodiversity and structural balance, even though the method is ruthless. The lesson embedded in this system is subtle but profound. Power in the ocean is not always loud. Control does not require speed or size. Sometimes it requires patience, chemistry, and an understanding of how environments constrain behavior. Sea snakes do not overpower their prey. They remove its ability to act. In the end, the reef corridor closes in. The prey slows, drifts, collides, and finally stops responding. The snake advances, unhurried, collecting the result of a process that began with a bite so small it barely registered. This is not a kill built on violence. It is a shutdown, A quiet, efficient collapse engineered by evolution to turn the reef's tightest spaces into places where escape is an illusion and weakness is fatal. The first sensation is not pain. It is pressure, a sudden enclosing force that turns open water into a collapsing space. One moment the reef feels navigable, full of gaps and escape routes, and the next it contracts around a single point where movement no longer belongs to the one trying to flee. This is the defining moment of an octopus attack. Not a strike, not a bite, but a restructuring of space itself. The octopus does not chase in the traditional sense. It removes options until resistance becomes irrelevant. An octopus does not rely on speed to secure prey. It relies on reach. 8 arms extend outward like a living net, each capable of independent movement, each equipped with hundreds of suction cups that operate not as simple grips, but as adaptive anchoring systems. These suckers are not passive. They actively sample the surface they contact, using chemical receptors to taste and evaluate what they have touched. The moment contact is made, suction pressure is applied with remarkable precision, adjusting strength based on resistance. Flesh, scales, shell, rock. The arms know the difference instantly, and they respond accordingly. When those arms wrap around a victim, the environment changes. The open geometry of water, where movement is usually unrestricted, collapses into a series of narrowing vectors. Every direction that once offered escape is blocked by muscle. The octopus does not simply grab, it pins. Arms cross over each other, forming overlapping layers of restraint that distribute force across the prey's body. This is not brute strength applied randomly. It is control applied strategically. One arm may secure the head, another immobilizes fins. Others anchor to the reef, converting the octopus's soft body into a fixed point that cannot be pushed away. The suction cups are central to this process. Each one creates negative pressure strong enough to adhere to smooth surfaces and textured ones alike. Combined, they generate a grip that resists sudden movement without tearing tissue immediately, which is critical. Prey that thrashes violently risks dislocating itself, exhausting muscle reserves, or losing orientation entirely. The octopus allows this. It does not rush the outcome. Instead, it tightens the web incrementally, letting panic work against the trapped animal. As the arms secure the body, the octopus begins repositioning. This is where the restraint becomes deliberate. Prey is rotated, flipped and aligned toward the beak, a rigid parrot-like structure hidden at the center of the arms. The beak is small relative to the octopus's body, but its placement is precise. Everything the arms do serves the goal of bringing a vulnerable point within reach. Gills, the back of the skull, a soft junction between shell plates. The octopus does not need to overpower every part of the prey. It needs access to one critical weakness. This process unfolds in silence. There is no audible struggle, no dramatic burst of motion. From a distance, it can look almost gentle, like a slow embrace. But within that enclosure, the victim's world is shrinking rapidly. Water flow becomes turbulent and uneven. Gills struggle to draw oxygen as arms block normal currents. Fins that once provided propulsion now beat uselessly against muscle that yields just enough to absorb force without releasing grip. There is no leverage, because leverage requires something rigid to push against. The octopus's body denies this by design. Octopus muscle is arranged in a way that allows both flexibility and strength. Without bones, the arms function as muscular hydrostats, meaning their shape and stiffness are controlled entirely by muscle contraction. This allows an arm to be soft and yielding one moment, then rigid and immovable the next. When anchoring to the reef, arms stiffen, locking the octopus in place. When restraining prey, they remain flexible enough to conform to the body's contours, maximizing surface contact and minimizing escape gaps. This adaptability is why removing options is such an effective strategy. Traditional predators rely on speed or bite force to end a struggle quickly. The octopus relies on inevitability. Every movement the prey makes is met with an adjustment. Every attempt to pull free creates new points of contact. The more the victim fights, the more information the octopus gathers about its strength, orientation, and vulnerabilities. This feedback loop favors patience over aggression. Once positioned, the beak comes into play. The bite itself is not always immediately lethal, but it is decisive. In many species, the octopus injects venom through the beak, accelerating paralysis and tissue breakdown. This venom is tailored to the prey type, disrupting nerve function or relaxing muscles to prevent further resistance. Combined with physical restraint, the effect is overwhelming. The prey may still be alive, still conscious in a biological sense, but its capacity to influence the outcome has been eliminated. Breathing becomes the next critical failure point. As arms compress the body and obstruct gill movement, oxygen intake drops. Unlike mammals, fish cannot hold their breath. They must maintain water flow across gill surfaces continuously. When this flow is disrupted, suffocation begins quickly. Panic increases metabolic demand, further accelerating oxygen depletion. The octopus does not need to squeeze harder. It simply needs to maintain position. This method of predation is particularly effective in complex environments like reefs, where escape routes are narrow and visibility is fragmented. Prey species in these habitats evolve for agility and burst speed, not for sustained strength or grappling. The octopus exploits this mismatch perfectly. It does not compete in the prey's strengths. It bypasses them entirely. From an ecological standpoint, this makes the octopus a regulator of behavior as much as population. Fish that share territory with octopuses learn to avoid certain crevices, overhangs, and rubble piles. The presence of an octopus alters movement patterns, feeding schedules, and risk assessment across the reef. Even when the octopus is not actively hunting, its potential presence reshapes the ecosystem. The restraint strategy also reflects the octopus's intelligence. Coordinating 8 arms simultaneously requires advanced neural processing. More than half of an octopus's neurons are distributed throughout its arms, allowing localized decision-making without constant input from the central brain. This means each arm can adjust grip independently, responding to micro-movements and changes in resistance in real time. The result is a decentralized control system that adapts faster than centralized reflexes could. There is a dark efficiency to this. The prey is not overwhelmed by a single catastrophic injury. Instead, it is gradually deprived of every mechanism it could use to survive. Space is reduced. Movement is neutralized. Breathing is compromised. Orientation is lost. The order of failure is not accidental. It mirrors the hierarchy of needs required for escape. Remove space first, then leverage, then oxygen. Only at the end does physical damage become necessary. This is why encounters with octopuses feel unsettling even when observed indirectly. The threat is not visible in advance. There is no telltale silhouette approaching from the distance. The octopus emerges from texture, from shadow, from the environment itself. One moment the reef is inert. The next, it is alive and reaching. For prey, the moment the arms wrap is the moment the world becomes smaller. Not metaphorically, but physically. The boundaries close in. Options disappear. And in that constricted space, the octopus demonstrates a form of predation that is neither fast nor loud, but absolute. It does not need to chase you through the reef. It only needs to touch you once, and then the reef, the water, and your own body begin working against you. In the end, the octopus releases nothing until there is nothing left to resist. When it finally loosens its grip, it is not because the struggle was won, but because it is no longer necessary. The living restraint has done its job. The prey's world was made smaller, then simpler, then silent. The reef looks solid until it opens. What appears from a distance to be a continuous wall of coral is up close, a lattice of fractures, slots, and blind tunnels carved by centuries of erosion and living growth. These gaps are not empty. They are corridors of pressure and shadow, where water slows, sound dulls, and escape geometry collapses. This is where the Moray eel lives, and more importantly, where it hunts. The reef here is not a backdrop. It is a mechanical system designed to remove options, and the Moray is its operator. Moray eels do not chase prey across open water. Their bodies are long, muscular, and powerful, but speed is not the tool they favor. Instead, They position themselves with only the head exposed, jaws open in a posture often misread as aggression, but actually essential respiration. Water must be pumped across their gills, and the open mouth allows this flow while they remain stationary. To prey, the exposed head looks like a static hazard, a risk to be navigated around. To the Moray, it is a doorway. The strike is sudden, but not expansive. The eel does not lunge outward, so much as clamp inward. The jaws snap shut around whatever passes close enough, and immediately the eel retreats backward into the reef. This reverse motion is critical. Rather than pulling prey out into open water, where leverage and maneuverability exist, the Moray drags the victim into confinement. Space collapses. The walls close in. The fight moves from a fluid environment into a solid one, where the eel's long body can brace against stone and coral. The clamp bite itself is designed for holding, not tearing. Moray teeth are sharp, recurved, and angled backward, ideal for preventing withdrawal. Once the jaws close, pulling away only drives the teeth deeper. This transforms the prey's instinct to flee into a mechanism of further entrapment. The more it struggles, the more securely it is anchored. In open water, a bite might be a starting point. In a reef crack, it is an end point. As the eel reverses into the wall, the prey is forced to follow. Fins scrape coral. Scales catch on rock. Orientation is lost almost immediately because the space does not allow full body alignment. Fish are built to swim forward, not to be pulled backward into narrowing tunnels. Their musculature is optimized for propulsion, not resistance. Inside a reef crevice, every thrash increases friction and damage, accelerating exhaustion while accomplishing nothing. Then comes the second pull. Moray eels possess a pharyngeal jaw, a secondary set of jaws located deep in the throat. Unlike most fish, which use throat muscles only to guide food inward after capture, Morays actively project this second jaw forward into the mouth cavity. When the pharyngeal jaw snaps onto the prey, it does not bite externally. It grips from within, locking onto flesh and pulling it deeper into the throat. This is not redundancy. It is insurance. The pharyngeal jaw solves a problem that most predators avoid by brute force. In tight spaces, prey can brace against the environment. A fish wedged in a crack can push outward with its fins or body, creating counterforce against the primary jaws. The pharyngeal jaw bypasses this entirely. It removes the need to pull the prey out. Instead, the prey is drawn inward, deeper into the eel's body, regardless of what the external environment allows. This second pull is decisive. Once engaged, escape is no longer a question of strength or speed. The prey is being reeled in from the inside. The reef walls prevent lateral movement. The clamp bite prevents withdrawal. The pharyngeal jaw prevents stalling. Every mechanical advantage belongs to the eel. The environment amplifies this effect. Reef crevices are irregular, full of protrusions and dead ends. As prey is dragged inward, its body collides repeatedly with hard surfaces. This causes injury, disorientation, and loss of coordination. Gills struggle as water flow becomes chaotic. Breathing efficiency drops. Panic increases oxygen demand at the worst possible moment. The prey's internal systems begin failing even before the bite itself proves fatal. Morays exploit this confinement deliberately. Their long, flexible bodies allow them to anchor deep within the reef, using their tails to brace against bends and corners. This creates a stable platform from which the head can exert force without being pushed forward. The eel becomes part of the reef's structure, turning stone into muscle and muscle into leverage. This hunting style also explains the Moray's reputation for aggression, particularly toward divers. It is not aggression in the territorial sense. It is proximity-based reflex. Anything that enters the strike radius of a Moray's head risks triggering the clamp response, especially if it resembles prey in size or movement. Hands probing crevices, speared fish thrashing near holes, or limbs brushing past an occupied crack can all initiate the sequence. Once the bite lands, the eel's instinct is not to release and reassess. It is to retreat into the wall. The reef, again, becomes the prison. From an evolutionary perspective, The pharyngeal jaw is a remarkable adaptation to a three-dimensional environment where suction feeding is ineffective. Most fish rely on rapid expansion of the mouth cavity to pull prey inward. In narrow reef spaces, this method fails because water cannot be displaced quickly enough. The Moray's internal jaws circumvent fluid mechanics entirely. They operate independently of water flow, allowing feeding in spaces where suction is impossible. This adaptation reshapes the reef's internal food web. Morays can access prey that other predators cannot, reaching into holes and extracting animals that rely on crevices for safety. In doing so, they prevent these refugees from becoming permanent sanctuaries. Safety in the reef is conditional, not absolute. Every hiding place has a specialist predator designed to exploit it. The psychological effect of this predation strategy is profound, even among experienced observers. Being pulled into a wall triggers a primal response. Space is one of the most fundamental survival variables. When it disappears, panic follows almost instantly. The Moray does not need venom or speed to incapacitate. It uses architecture. It turns the environment against the victim, reducing the encounter to a mechanical inevitability. Inside the crack, visibility drops to near zero. Light scatters unpredictably. The prey cannot see the eel's body or gauge distance. Sensory overload replaces situational awareness. Every contact with the wall feels like a new threat. The prey's nervous system floods with stress signals that further degrade motor control. The fight is lost long before the eel finishes feeding. Even after death, the reef continues to play a role. The eel often remains partially concealed as it consumes the prey, keeping most of its body hidden while the pharyngeal jaws work rhythmically. This reduces exposure to larger predators and scavengers, allowing the Moray to feed with relative security. The wall that trapped the prey now protects the predator. Moray eels are not apex predators in the traditional sense. They do not dominate open water or hunt large animals. But within the reef's interior, they are unrivaled. Their strategy is not about overpowering the ecosystem. It is about mastering its constraints. The horror of being dragged into a crack is not just physical. It is structural. The realization that the environment itself is complicit changes how the reef is perceived forever. What once looked like shelter becomes suspicion. Every dark line in the coral suggests depth. Every hole implies occupancy. For prey species, this pressure shapes behavior across generations. Fish learn to keep distance from cracks with active scent signatures. They modify feeding routes. They avoid certain angles of approach. The Moray's influence extends far beyond the kills it makes. It reorganizes traffic patterns within the reef, carving invisible boundaries enforced by the memory of confinement. In the end, the Moray eel does not need to pursue, overpower, or even fully reveal itself. It waits. It clamps. It retreats. And with the second pull, the reef closes like a door that only opens inward. The reef appears calm at first glance. Water moves lazily through coral heads, sunlight fractures into wavering bands, and small fish drift in loose, confident formations that suggest safety through familiarity. Nothing here seems hurried. Nothing seems threatened. Then the geometry changes. A shape unfolds that does not chase, does not rush, and does not need to. The lionfish enters the frame like an expanding perimeter rather than a predator, and the water around it begins to close. Lionfish do not hunt by speed. They hunt by enclosure. Their bodies are slow, deliberate, almost theatrical in movement. But this is not inefficiency. It is control. Long, fan-like pectoral fins spread outward and forward, transforming the fish's silhouette into something far larger than its core body. These fins are not decorative. They are architectural. When extended, they form a living fence that defines space. And once that space is defined, prey behavior begins to change. Small reef fish respond to boundaries instinctively. In open water, their survival strategy relies on rapid acceleration and unpredictable direction changes. But when confronted with the lionfish's expanding fin array, those instincts misfire. The fins create visual barriers that appear solid even though they are permeable. Prey hesitate testing gaps that do not behave like open water. Each pause costs time. Each hesitation allows the fence to move closer. The lionfish advances slowly, adjusting fin angles to block escape routes. This is herding, not pursuit. The fish uses the reef itself as a secondary wall, guiding prey toward coral faces, rock ledges, or the sea floor where options narrow. The environment becomes part of the trap. The prey is not being chased into exhaustion. It is being guided into confinement. What makes this strategy especially effective is that the fence is also a weapon. The long dorsal, anal, and pelvic spines of the lionfish are venomous, each one connected to a venom gland, capable of delivering painful, medically significant envenomation. These spines are rigid and sharp, positioned exactly where a panicked fish might collide if it attempts to force its way through the fins. The message is simple and enforced instantly. Contact hurts. Contact punishes. This creates a psychological trap layered on top of the physical one. Prey that brush against the spines experience immediate pain, even if the dose is small. That pain reinforces avoidance behavior, teaching the prey to respect the fence. After one or two contacts, fish often stop attempting direct escape entirely, instead retreating inward, deeper into the shrinking space the lionfish controls. The fence does not need to be impenetrable. It only needs to be convincing. Lionfish venom is not designed to kill prey outright. Its role here is deterrence and compliance. The venom causes intense pain, muscle disruption, and localized swelling. For a small fish, even a minor envenomation can interfere with fin movement and coordination, further reducing escapability. The prey becomes slower, less precise, and more predictable. In the context of herding, this is devastating. As the fence tightens, the lionfish's body remains almost motionless. Pectoral fins pulse gently, maintaining the enclosure. The head stays oriented toward the prey, mouth closed, eyes tracking movement with unsettling focus. This stillness is deceptive. It gives the impression of hesitation or passivity, which further delays the prey's response. The lionfish is not waiting. It is timing. The final act of this sequence is not dramatic. There is no explosive lunge or violent collision. Instead, when the prey reaches the limit of the enclosure, often pressed against a rock face or cornered against the reef floor, the lionfish executes a rapid suction strike. The mouth opens with sudden force, creating a pressure differential that pulls the prey inward faster than muscle-driven swimming can counter. The strike lasts a fraction of a second. The prey is gone before the water settles. This suction feeding is highly efficient because the prey is already positioned correctly. The lionfish does not need to align its body or adjust trajectory at the last moment. The herding phase has done that work in advance. By the time the mouth opens, the prey is directly in front of it, oriented head first, with no lateral space to evade. The strike is inevitable because the options were removed earlier. From an evolutionary perspective, this hunting strategy represents a remarkable fusion of morphology and behavior. The exaggerated fins that define the lionfish's appearance evolved not just as a warning display, but as an active tool for spatial manipulation. The venomous spines reinforce this manipulation by making the boundaries meaningful. Together, they create a predation system that minimizes energy expenditure while maximizing success. This efficiency explains why lionfish are such effective invaders in ecosystems where they do not belong. In regions where native prey species did not evolve alongside lionfish, the visual language of the fence is unfamiliar. Fish do not recognize the fins as a threat until it is too late. They hesitate longer. They test the boundaries more frequently. They are punished more often. The result is overconsumption and ecological imbalance. Lionfish also benefit from a lack of natural predators in many invaded habitats. Their venomous spines deter most would-be attackers, and their slow, confident movements signal danger effectively. This allows them to hunt openly, during daylight, without the need for stealth. The calmness of their approach is not just a stylistic choice. It is a declaration of dominance. What makes this predation particularly unsettling is how non-violent it appears on the surface. There is no frantic chase, no visible struggle. To an untrained observer, the scene can look almost serene. A beautiful fish gliding through coral, fins waving like ornamental fans. Only when viewed through the lens of behavior does the underlying tension become apparent. Every movement is calculated. Every pause is intentional. The calm is a mask for inevitability. The prey's experience is the opposite. Inside the fence, stress escalates rapidly. Confined space triggers panic responses. Oxygen demand increases. Muscle fatigue sets in as repeated escape attempts fail. Contact with spines adds pain and impairment. By the time the final strike occurs, the prey is already compromised, its nervous system overloaded, and its body operating at the edge of failure. The reef, once again, plays an active role. Corners, ledges, and uneven surfaces limit movement and create predictable endpoints for the herding process. Lionfish often choose hunting grounds with complex structures precisely because these environments amplify their advantage. Open sand flats offer too many escape routes. Coral mazes funnel prey into corners. This strategy also reshapes prey behavior over time. In ecosystems where lionfish are native, small fish learn to recognize the fence early and avoid it altogether. They maintain greater distance. They alter feeding times. They shift habitat preferences. In invaded systems, these adaptations lag behind, leading to population crashes and cascading ecological effects. The lionfish's success is not an accident of appearance. It is the result of a predation model that exploits perception, pain, and space simultaneously. The fence is visual. The spines are physical. The suction strike is mechanical. Each component reinforces the others, creating a system that feels slow but operates faster than reaction time. Even attempts to fight back are punished. A fish that lunges toward the lionfish risks impalement on venomous spines. A fish that turns away is guided inward. A fish that freezes buys time for the enclosure to tighten. There is no correct response once the process begins. The mistake happened earlier, when the prey allowed the fence to form. This is what makes the lionfish unsettling as a predator. It does not overwhelm with speed or strength. It overwhelms with certainty. The outcome is decided before the prey realizes it is in danger. By the time panic sets in, the reef has been transformed into a funnel, the fins into walls, and the calm into a countdown. The lionfish does not need to hurry. It knows the end point. And in the quiet water between coral heads, inevitability moves slowly, beautifully, and without mercy. The sand looks empty until it moves. Not in the way predators usually announce themselves, with motion that draws the eye or silhouettes that break the horizon, but in a way that feels wrong only after it happens. A ripple where there should be none. A sudden disturbance that rises from below, not ahead. In shallow coastal waters, where visibility is often good and danger feels manageable, the seafloor itself becomes the point of failure. This is where stingrays operate, and where invisibility is not camouflage, but concealment of intent. Stingrays do not hide behind rocks or coral. They disappear into the substrate. With slow, deliberate movements, they fan sand over their flattened bodies until only eyes and spiracles remain exposed. From above, they cease to look like animals at all. The outline dissolves. Texture replaces shape. Color blends seamlessly with the bottom. This burial behavior is not passive rest. It is a defensive posture refined by millions of years of pressure from predators that approach from above. The stingray becomes part of the floor, and the floor becomes armed. Water continues to flow across the buried body. The ray breathes through spiracles positioned behind the eyes, drawing in water from above the sand and expelling it through gills on the underside without ingesting sediment. This adaptation allows the animal to remain concealed indefinitely, waiting without revealing its presence. From the perspective of anything swimming overhead, the sand is inert. There is no warning signal, no visual cue that danger is beneath. The strike, when it happens, is not a hunt. It is a reflexive defense triggered by pressure or proximity. A footstep, a shadow passing too close, a fin brushing the wrong place. The stingray reacts with explosive speed, whipping its tail upward and forward in a single, powerful arc. At the base of that tail is the barb, a rigid, serrated spine designed not to inject venom through a bite, but to punish intrusion through penetration. The barb is not smooth. Its edges are lined with backward-facing serrations, like barbs on a fishhook, magnified and hardened. When it penetrates flesh, removal becomes traumatic. Tissue tears, blood vessels rupture. The spine is coated in venom-producing cells that release toxins directly into the wound. This venom is not meant to kill outright. It is meant to incapacitate through pain, tissue damage, and functional loss. Pain arrives instantly and intensely. Victims often describe it as disproportionate to the size of the wound, a deep, burning agony that radiates outward and overwhelms attention. Muscles around the injury can spasm or weaken, and swelling can be rapid. In water, where balance and propulsion rely on coordinated muscle function, this disruption is dangerous. The injury does not need to be fatal to become catastrophic. It only needs to compromise movement. This is the stingray's true power. It does not seek to consume what it strikes. It seeks to create distance by disabling the threat long enough to escape. But in doing so, it creates a secondary vulnerability. An injured swimmer, diver, or animal becomes slow, disoriented, and exposed. In ecosystems where predators constantly scan for weakness, this is enough. From an ecological perspective, stingrays occupy a critical niche as benthic foragers. They feed on mollusks, crustaceans, and small fish buried in the sediment, using electroreception to detect faint bioelectric signals beneath the sand. This same sensory system allows them to remain aware of movement above while buried, detecting pressure changes and electrical disturbances caused by approaching animals. The strike is not blind. It is informed by a sensory map that most creatures never perceive. The danger arises because this sensory world overlaps poorly with human intuition. People step into shallow water, assuming visibility equals safety. They wade barefoot, shuffle feet, or move carelessly across sand that appears uniform. The stingray does not interpret this as benign. Pressure is pressure. A large animal moving overhead triggers the same defensive response regardless of intent. The result is a lesson delivered without warning. One misstep, one careless movement, and the floor attacks back. The injury itself reshapes the immediate environment. Blood disperses into the water column, a chemical signal that attracts opportunistic predators. Pain alters posture and movement, making injured animals easier to track visually. Even without blood, erratic swimming patterns and reduced speed stand out against the steady rhythms of the reef. Predators do not need to know the cause of injury. They only need to recognize the result. In natural settings, this dynamic plays out constantly. A fish struck by a stingray may escape the initial encounter, but struggle to swim effectively afterward. Reduced fin control, tissue damage, and shock increase vulnerability to sharks, large fish, or even scavengers that would otherwise ignore it. The stingray's defense, though not predatory, indirectly fuels the food web by converting a moment of intrusion into a cascade of opportunity for others. The barb itself is a disposable weapon. In some species, it can break off inside the wound, continuing to release venom and complicating healing. Over time, the stingray regrows the barb, ensuring readiness for future encounters. This ability to sacrifice part of the weapon without sacrificing survival reflects the evolutionary priority placed on deterrence over permanence. There is a grim efficiency to this system. The stingray does not need to assess threat level, intent, or identity. The response is binary. Pressure above equals strike. In an environment where hesitation can be fatal, simplicity is an advantage. The cost of striking unnecessarily is low. The cost of failing to strike is death. The invisibility of the stingray also alters how the seafloor functions as habitat. Areas that appear open and safe may in fact be actively occupied by hidden animals capable of sudden violence. This creates behavioral pressure on species that share the space. Fish learn to avoid certain patches of sand or to approach cautiously. Predators adjust hunting paths. The sand becomes a contested zone, not a neutral one. For humans, the danger is magnified by scale and context. A sting to the leg or foot can impair swimming ability immediately. In shallow water, this may lead to falls, panic, or secondary injuries. In deeper water, it can be life-threatening. The venom's systemic effects, combined with pain-induced stress responses, can lead to rapid exhaustion. An injured diver struggling to surface or maintain buoyancy does not need a predator to be at risk. The environment itself becomes hostile. What makes the stingray particularly unsettling is that there is no visual escalation, no stalking, no chase, no warning display. The threat remains invisible until it is already in motion. By the time the tail whips upward, the mistake has already been made. This strategy reflects a broader truth about survival in shallow marine ecosystems. Danger is not always associated with motion or intent. Sometimes it is associated with complacency. The assumption that stillness equals safety is repeatedly punished by animals that specialize in remaining unseen. The stingray does not dominate the ecosystem through aggression. It survives by enforcing boundaries without announcing them. The sand is its camouflage, its shield, and its trap. The barb is its final argument, delivered only when that boundary is crossed. In the aftermath of a strike, the stingray flees, burying itself again elsewhere, leaving behind pain, injury, and altered behavior. The encounter is brief. The consequences are not. For prey species, the lesson is immediate and encoded quickly. Avoid sudden contact with the floor. Maintain distance. Respect the unknown beneath. For humans, the lesson is often learned the hard way, through a single misstep that transforms a calm shoreline into a medical emergency. The darkness here does not come from depth or night. It comes from below, from a surface that looks harmless until it lashes out. In stingray territory, the ground is not passive. It is watching, waiting, and armed. The burrow looks like a refuge, a narrow opening in the sand or reef rubble, reinforced by broken shell fragments and compacted sediment, just wide enough to slip inside. For many reef animals, these spaces mean survival. They offer shelter from open water predators, a place where speed and size no longer matter. But some burrows are not shelters. Some are kill zones, engineered around a single moment so violent that the surrounding environment ceases to behave normally. This is the domain of the mantis shrimp. At rest, it appears almost restrained, its body tucked neatly into its burrow, eyes rotating independently on stalks that scan the surroundings with unsettling precision. Those eyes alone hint at what is coming. They are among the most complex visual systems in the animal kingdom, capable of detecting polarized light and subtle color contrasts invisible to most marine life. In the dim, cluttered environment of the reef floor, this vision allows the mantis shrimp to track movement with surgical accuracy. Nothing approaches unnoticed. Nothing enters the strike zone by accident. The weapon is folded beneath the body, held in a cocked position by a latch mechanism that stores elastic energy in specialized structures within the limb. This is not muscle power alone. Muscles load the system slowly, compressing biological springs that lock into place. When the latch releases, the appendage does not swing. It detonates forward. The speed is so extreme that the limb moves faster than the surrounding water can flow out of the way. What follows is not just impact. It is physics turning hostile. When the mantis shrimp's club strikes, it generates a cavitation bubble, a pocket of vapor formed because the water pressure drops abruptly behind the accelerating limb. This bubble collapses almost instantly, producing a secondary shock wave of heat, light, and pressure. The prey is hit twice. First by the physical blow, then by the implosion of water itself. Even if the club does not make perfect contact, the cavitation shock can still stun or kill. In open water, a creature might dodge. In a burrow, there is nowhere to go. The prey, often a crab, snail, or small fish, enters the confined space expecting safety. The walls limit movement. The ceiling restricts vertical escape. When the strike comes, the environment amplifies its effect. Shock waves reflect off hard surfaces, rebounding through the narrow chamber. Orientation collapses instantly. The prey's nervous system is overwhelmed not by injury alone, but by sensory chaos. Balance fails. Reflexes misfire. Control evaporates. Shells crack not because they are weak, but because they are hit faster than they can distribute force. Armor is designed to resist gradual pressure, not sudden impulses that exceed the material's capacity to respond elastically. The mantis shrimp exploits this limitation perfectly. The strike does not pry or crush. It overwhelms structural integrity in a single instant. For prey without shells, the effect is even more disorienting. The shock wave travels through soft tissue, disrupting equilibrium and motor control. Fish may survive the initial strike, but lose the ability to coordinate movement. Fins beat out of sync. Muscles contract erratically. The animal may spin, drift, or freeze entirely, its internal systems struggling to re-establish order. This is the darker truth of the mantis shrimp's weapon. It is not merely destructive, it is destabilizing. In nature, survival often depends on immediate, precise responses. A fraction of a second determines whether a fish escapes or is eaten. The mantis shrimp removes that fraction of a second entirely. The prey does not get to react. Its sensory input becomes unreliable at the exact moment a response is needed. Even if the body remains intact, the mind, such as it is briefly disconnected from reality. The mantis shrimp capitalizes on this window ruthlessly. A second strike follows almost immediately, not because the first failed, but because the prey is now incapable of effective resistance. The animal is no longer fighting back. It is trying to understand what happened. In that gap between cause and comprehension, the outcome is sealed. The burrow itself is a critical part of this strategy. Mantis shrimp invest enormous energy into constructing and maintaining these structures, reinforcing them with debris and aligning openings to maximize visibility while minimizing vulnerability. The burrow is not just shelter. It is a controlled environment, tuned to the shrimp's strengths. Narrow enough to prevent lateral escape. Rigid enough to reflect shock. Familiar enough that the shrimp can navigate it instantly, even in low visibility. This is why encounters in burrows are so one-sided. Prey enters unfamiliar territory, governed by unfamiliar rules. The mantis shrimp operates in a space it has effectively designed. Every angle favors the strike. Every surface multiplies its effect. The shrimp's own body is built to survive this violence. Its exoskeleton absorbs and distributes recoil forces that would shatter less specialized limbs. The striking appendage itself is reinforced with layered structures that resist fatigue and cracking, despite repeated high-energy impacts. Over time, the club may wear down, but it is periodically molted and replaced, restored to peak condition. The weapon is renewable. The damage it inflicts is not. Ecologically, this predation style positions mantis shrimp as regulators of benthic communities. They control populations of hard-shelled organisms that might otherwise dominate reef and sediment habitats. By breaking what seems unbreakable, they prevent any single defensive strategy from becoming absolute. Armor works until it meets something that ignores the rules armor was built for. There is an unsettling efficiency to this. The mantis shrimp does not waste energy chasing prey across the reef. It waits. It watches. It strikes when success is guaranteed. The violence is brief, contained, and decisive. To an outside observer, it can seem disproportionate, but in evolutionary terms, it is precision refined to an extreme. The darkness of this encounter lies in how little agency the prey retains. There is no prolonged struggle, no test of endurance. The moment the strike lands, the prey's reality fractures. The world stops behaving predictably. Direction loses meaning. Control dissolves. By the time clarity returns, if it does at all, the opportunity to escape is gone. In human terms, the closest comparison would be a sudden concussion delivered without warning, in a space where falling means being pinned. But even that fails to capture the full effect, because the mantis shrimp's strike does not just affect the body, it affects the medium itself. Water becomes weaponized. Physics joins the attack. This is why mantis shrimp inspire such fascination and unease. They reveal that the ocean's dangers are not limited to teeth, venom, or size. Sometimes the threat is velocity. Sometimes it is the manipulation of fundamental forces in places where escape depends on milliseconds. Inside the burrow, after the strike, calm returns quickly. Sediment settles. Shock waves dissipate. The mantis shrimp resumes its poised stillness, as if nothing extraordinary has occurred. But for the prey, reality has already ended, or been irreversibly altered. The punch does not need to be repeated often. Its reputation alone shapes behavior across the reef. Animals learn to avoid certain burrow openings. They recognize subtle cues of occupation. The mantis shrimp's influence extends beyond the bodies it breaks into the decisions others make to stay away. In this way, the mantis shrimp does not just stun prey. It stuns ecosystems into compliance. Its presence redraws invisible maps of safety and danger, all centered around a strike so fast that it feels less like an action and more like a sudden failure of the world to hold together. The reef is crowded with things that look like something else. Sponges mimic stone. Corals impersonate plants. Algae disguise animals, and animals disguise algae. To survive here, you learn to read motion, not shape. Movement means life. Stillness means safety. That rule works until it doesn't, because some predators evolve to exploit the rule itself, turning stillness into the most dangerous signal of all. The frogfish is one of them, and its violence begins not with speed or pursuit, but with erasure. At first, there is only a lump, a misshapen protrusion clinging to coral rubble or resting on sand, its surface textured with bumps, filaments, and folds that perfectly mirror the surrounding growth. It looks dead, not dormant, not hiding, dead. A fragment of reef that has no reason to be watched. Fish pass above it without altering course, their attention tuned to open water threats and darting shadows. They do not see a predator, because the predator has removed itself from the category of things that require interpretation. This is not passive camouflage. Frogfish do not simply blend in by coincidence. Their bodies actively grow skin flaps and irregular textures that match the specific environment they inhabit. Individuals living among sponges develop sponge-like protrusions. Those embedded in coral rubble take on angular, broken outlines. Color is variable, shifting over time to match dominant hues in the habitat. Yellow, red, black, mottled brown. The disguise is not universal. It is local. A frogfish becomes the reef it lives on. While the body lies inert, something else moves, just barely. A thin, flexible filament extends from the frogfish's head, tipped with a fleshy lure that twitches, pulses, or drifts in the current. This is not decoration. It is bait. The lure mimics the motion of small worms, shrimp, or fish fry, tuned to the preferences of local prey species. It does not thrash wildly. It moves just enough to register as edible, just enough to invite inspection. The prey approaches not because it is careless, but because the environment tells it there is no reason not to. The lump does not move. The water around it behaves normally. The reef does not react. All the usual warning signs are absent. In the logic of reef survival, this is a safe interaction. The frogfish waits. It does not track prey with head turns or body adjustments. That would betray its presence. Instead, its eyes move independently, locking onto the approaching animal while the rest of the body remains frozen. Muscles tense beneath the skin, storing energy without visible motion. The mouth stays closed, sealed, unremarkable. Nothing prepares the prey for what is about to happen, because there is no gradual escalation. There is no approach phase. There is only proximity. When the strike occurs, it is not a bite. It is a vacuum failure. The frogfish opens its mouth so fast that the surrounding water cannot respond. The jaw hinges downward and outward, expanding the mouth cavity to many times its resting volume in a fraction of a second. Pressure inside the mouth drops catastrophically, and water rushes in to equalize it. Anything in front of the mouth is carried along with that flow. The prey does not move toward the frogfish. The water moves the prey. Reaction time is irrelevant here. Neural processing cannot keep pace with physics. By the time sensory information reaches the prey's brain, the animal is already inside the mouth, compressed by incoming water and forced against the throat. Escape does not fail because the prey is slow. It fails because the environment itself has been weaponized. The strike is so rapid that it is often invisible at normal observation speeds. To the naked eye, the prey simply vanishes. One moment it exists, the next it does not. No splash, no disturbance. The reef does not appear to react. It is as if the ecosystem itself removed an element without explanation. Inside the mouth, the frogfish completes the process with mechanical certainty. The jaws close. Water is expelled through gill openings behind the head, preventing backflow. The prey is pinned against backward-facing teeth that prevent escape. In some cases, the frogfish swallows the prey whole. In others, it manipulates and repositions the animal before ingestion. Either way, the outcome is decided instantly. This feeding strategy only works at extremely close range, which is why camouflage is not optional. The frogfish cannot chase. Its body is poorly suited for sustained swimming. It moves by awkward hops and shuffles, using modified pectoral fins like limbs. Speed is not its asset. Control of space is. The prey must come to the frogfish, and the frogfish must remain undetected until the last possible moment. The horror of this interaction lies in its asymmetry. The prey is operating under a false model of reality. It believes the space is empty. It believes the object is inert. It believes proximity is safe. All of those beliefs are reinforced by every sensory input available to it. When the strike occurs, it is not just the body that is captured. The assumptions are destroyed. From an ecological perspective, suction feeding of this intensity represents an extreme specialization. Many fish use suction to feed, but most rely on moderate pressure differentials combined with forward motion. The frogfish eliminates forward motion entirely. It does not move into the prey's space. It collapses the prey's space into itself. This allows it to feed in cluttered environments where traditional pursuit would fail. The reef amplifies this effectiveness. Hard surfaces reflect pressure waves. Narrow gaps limit lateral escape. Prey species accustomed to using quick bursts of speed to evade predators find that speed meaningless when the water itself is moving faster than they can swim. The reef becomes a stage for disappearance rather than conflict. The frogfish's body is built to withstand the forces it generates. Ligaments and jaw joints are reinforced to tolerate repeated rapid expansions without damage. Elastic tissues store and release energy efficiently. After feeding, the frogfish often appears grotesquely swollen, its body distended by prey that can approach or even exceed its own size. Digestion is slow, and during this time the frogfish remains vulnerable, relying once again on camouflage rather than flight. This vulnerability reinforces the need for certainty. A frogfish cannot afford failed strikes. Each feeding event must succeed because recovery time is long and movement is limited. Evolution responds to this constraint by refining the strike to near perfection. The result is one of the highest capture success rates among ambush predators. When the mouth opens, the prey is already gone. There is a psychological dimension to this predation that extends beyond the individual kill. The presence of frogfish alters how other species interpret the reef. Areas that appear unchanged may suddenly become zones of unexplained loss. Fish disappear without chase, without struggle, without visible cause. Over time, prey species adapt by avoiding certain textures, shapes, or microhabitats, even when no obvious threat is present. The reef becomes haunted by absence. For observers, this produces a unique kind of unease. Most predators announce themselves eventually. Teeth flash, bodies move, patterns emerge. The frogfish denies all of this. Its violence is instantaneous and contained, leaving no aftermath except a missing animal and a predator that still looks like a rock. This is why the frogfish feels less like a hunter and more like a fault in the environment, a place where the rules briefly stop working. The reef does not chase you. It does not warn you. It simply deletes you when you cross an invisible threshold. In a system built on constant motion and reaction, the frogfish thrives by removing both. It teaches a brutal lesson about perception, that what you fail to recognize as alive may be the most dangerous thing in the water. That stillness can be active. That absence of warning is not safety, but intent refined to its purest form. The mouth opens. The water collapses. The prey is gone, and the reef looks exactly the same as it did before. The open water feels honest. There are no walls here, no corners, no crevices to hide danger. Light fades gradually as depth increases, but space remains uninterrupted in every direction. For most animals, this freedom is protection. In midwater, survival depends on awareness, speed, and distance. You see threats coming. You react. You flee. What you do not expect is to be stopped instantly, suspended in the water column by something that does not chase so much as intercept, and does not kill immediately so much as take control. This is where squid hunt. Squid are not ambush predators in the traditional sense. They do not wait for prey to wander into a fixed trap. They patrol the water column, adjusting depth, angle, and position with precise control over buoyancy and jet propulsion. Their bodies are streamlined, built for sudden acceleration and equally sudden stops. Large eyes dominate the head, adapted for low light sensitivity, able to detect contrast and movement in dim pelagic zones where outlines blur and silhouettes dissolve. In this environment, vision is survival, and squid see extremely well. But vision alone is not what makes the squid dangerous. It is what happens after visual contact. When a squid commits to an attack, it does not close distance gradually. It calculates the prey's speed, its trajectory, the surrounding water flow. Then, without warning, the tentacles launch. Unlike the 8 shorter arms that ring the squid's mouth, the 2 feeding tentacles are specialized weapons. They are longer, thinner, and stored coiled inside the body like compressed springs. When released, they shoot forward at extraordinary speed, extending to several times the squid's body length in a fraction of a second. The motion is not a grab. It is a strike. By the time the prey registers movement, the tentacles have already wrapped. At the ends of these tentacles are clubs lined with suckers, often reinforced with sharp hooks or toothed rings depending on the species. These structures are not meant for gentle adhesion. They are designed to lock onto slippery, struggling bodies in a medium where friction is low and escape usually depends on momentum. The moment contact is made, grip strength increases. Suction cups engage. Hooks catch. The prey is pinned before it understands what has touched it. This is the first phase of restraint, and it happens in open water where there is nothing to brace against and nowhere to hide. The prey's instinct is to accelerate away, but acceleration requires space and time. Both are gone. The tentacles pull inward, drawing the prey rapidly toward the squid's arms, which close in to form a secondary cage. These arms are thicker, more muscular, and densely packed with additional suckers that reinforce the hold. The squid does not need to squeeze with crushing force. It needs to prevent rotation, redirection, or thrust. Control matters more than strength. Midwater restraint is uniquely terrifying because it removes every survival reference point. There is no bottom to push off, no structure to collide with, no vegetation to disappear into. The prey is suspended, held in 3 dimensions by living cables that respond to every movement. Each struggle is met with adjustment. Each attempt to twist free is countered by opposing force from another arm. Squid arms are neurologically sophisticated. Like octopus arms, they possess significant local neural processing, allowing rapid reflexive responses without waiting for instructions from the central brain. This means grip strength and positioning can change faster than conscious decision-making in prey species. The squid feels resistance and responds instantly, tightening where needed and relaxing elsewhere to maintain balance. As the arms pull the prey closer, the squid reorients its body, bringing the mouth into position. At the center of the arms sits the beak, a rigid, parrot-like structure made of chitin and protein, capable of slicing through flesh, cartilage, and even bone. The beak does not look large relative to the squid's size, but it does not need to be. Its function is not to overpower, but to finish. Before the beak engages, the prey is already functionally defeated. Orientation is lost. Fins beat erratically against water that offers no leverage. Muscles burn as oxygen demand spikes. Panic increases heart rate and accelerates exhaustion. The squid does not rush this stage. It maintains hold, letting physiological failure begin its work. The beak then closes with mechanical precision. It targets the head, the spinal column, or vital soft tissue depending on species and prey size. The cut is decisive. This is not tearing or chewing. It is severing. In some species, venom delivered through saliva accelerates paralysis, ensuring the prey cannot continue struggling even after initial injury. The darkness of this interaction lies in how exposed it is. Unlike reef predators that use terrain to their advantage, squid kill in open space, where the prey's usual defenses are irrelevant. Speed does not help once the tentacles land. Agility does not matter when rotation is controlled. Camouflage is useless when the predator already committed to the strike. From an ecological perspective, this strategy allows squid to occupy a powerful niche as mid-water regulators. They prey on fish, crustaceans, and even other squid, controlling populations that move between surface and depth. Their hunting style bridges the gap between pelagic and benthic systems, linking food webs vertically through the water column. Squid physiology supports this role. Jet propulsion allows rapid repositioning. Large gills and efficient oxygen transport systems sustain bursts of activity. Buoyancy control reduces energy costs between hunts. Their skin contains chromatophores that can flash patterns for communication or camouflage, though during an attack, these displays are often minimal, conserving focus and reducing distraction. There is no prolonged chase in most squid attacks. Chasing wastes energy and alerts other predators. The squid's advantage is surprise combined with reach. By striking from just beyond the prey's reaction threshold, it ensures capture before the prey's nervous system can fully process danger. For prey species, this creates a constant pressure. In open water, danger does not always approach visibly. Sometimes it arrives as contact first, comprehension second. Fish learn to maintain distance from moving shapes of a certain size and speed. They adjust schooling behavior. They alter vertical migration patterns to reduce overlap with squid hunting zones. But these adaptations are imperfect because squid are adaptable too. Many species migrate vertically each night, rising toward the surface under cover of darkness to feed, then descending again before dawn. This daily movement places them repeatedly in contact with different prey communities, spreading predation pressure across layers of the ocean. In deep mid-water zones, where light is minimal and bioluminescence replaces color, the experience becomes even more disorienting. A sudden flash of movement, a pressure change, and then restraint. In darkness, the prey cannot even see what holds it. There is only force and loss of control. The psychological dimension of this predation is profound. Being held without ground reference disrupts spatial orientation completely. Vestibular systems struggle to interpret motion. The body cannot determine up from down. This confusion accelerates fatigue and panic, shortening the time before resistance collapses. Once feeding is complete, the squid releases the remains and resumes neutral buoyancy, drifting or jetting away as if nothing happened. The water column closes behind it, erasing the event. There are no marks left behind, no disturbed sediment, no broken coral, only a gap where a living animal used to be. This is the signature of open water predation. It leaves no trace. Squid embody a form of control that is easy to underestimate because it lacks spectacle. There is no massive body, no obvious weapon until it is already engaged. But their combination of sensory awareness, rapid deployment, and mechanical restraint makes them among the most efficient hunters in the mid-water realm. In a place defined by freedom of movement, squid succeed by taking that freedom away. They do not need walls. They bring their own. And once the hooks set and the arms close, the ocean offers no refuge at all. The water here does not feel empty. It feels watchful. Light ripples across sand and seagrass in shifting mosaics, broken by shadows that never quite resolve into shapes. In this layered environment, survival depends on interpretation. Fish read color changes, contrast edges, flickers of motion. They learn which patterns mean danger and which mean nothing at all. Over time, this visual literacy becomes instinct. And then something appears that speaks the language perfectly, too perfectly, and the system breaks. This is where cuttlefish hunt. At rest, a cuttlefish barely exists as an object. Its body softens into the background, skin texture reshaping itself to match sand ripples, algae strands, or rock pockmarks with astonishing fidelity. Pigment cells expand and contract across its skin in milliseconds, adjusting brightness, hue, and contrast so seamlessly that even nearby animals fail to register it as separate from the environment. This is not simple camouflage. It is environmental impersonation. The cuttlefish does not hide behind the reef. It becomes part of it. But camouflage is only the first layer of deception. Beneath the skin lies a nervous system built for visual manipulation. Cuttlefish possess one of the most advanced skin display systems on the planet, capable of producing waves, pulses, bands, and flickers of color that move independently of body motion. These displays are not random. They are controlled with intent, timed precisely, and deployed selectively. In hunting mode, the cuttlefish transitions from invisibility to performance. The change is subtle at first. A faint ripple of light travels across its body. Then another. The patterns grow more complex, alternating between high-contrast bands and soft gradients that seem to slide over the skin like reflections on water. To a nearby fish, this is not immediately alarming. The patterns resemble light distortions caused by surface waves or shifting clouds. The brain categorizes them as background noise. That categorization is the mistake. The flashing patterns interfere with the prey's visual processing. Rapid changes in contrast and brightness overwhelm motion detection circuits, making it difficult to isolate the cuttlefish's true outline or track its position accurately. This effect is not hypnosis in the mystical sense, but it functions the same way. Attention is captured. Focus narrows. Reaction time slows. For half a second, sometimes less, the prey hesitates, not frozen but undecided. In predator-prey dynamics, hesitation is lethal. During this moment, the cuttlefish does not move its body forward. That would break the illusion. Instead, it fires. Two specialized feeding tentacles shoot outward from the cuttlefish's head with explosive speed. Unlike the shorter arms used for manipulation, these tentacles are stored compactly and released like springs. They extend faster than the prey can react, traveling through water with minimal visual warning. At their tips are suction cups reinforced for grip, designed to lock onto flesh instantly. The tentacles strike and retract in one continuous motion. There is no pause between contact and capture. The prey is seized and pulled inward before its nervous system can resolve what happened. The half-second of confusion becomes permanent. As the prey is reeled in, the cuttlefish's shorter arms close around it, forming a secondary restraint. These arms are strong, flexible, and responsive, adjusting grip in real time as the prey struggles. The cuttlefish does not rely on brute force. It relies on coordination. Each arm contributes just enough pressure to prevent escape while allowing the animal to reposition the prey efficiently. At the center of this convergence sits the beak. Like squid and octopus, cuttlefish possess a hard, chitinous beak capable of slicing through flesh and crushing small bones. It is hidden from view until the final moment, shielded by the arms. By the time the beak engages, the prey is already controlled, its orientation fixed, its movement constrained. The kill is swift, clinical, and decisive. What makes this hunting sequence unsettling is how little overt violence it involves. There is no extended chase, no visible struggle that ripples through the environment. To an outside observer, the prey simply stops being free. One moment it swims. The next, it is being pulled into a living system that had seemed like scenery seconds earlier. The ecological brilliance of this strategy lies in how it exploits sensory shortcuts. Reef fish are bombarded constantly with visual stimuli, moving shadows, flickering light, shifting textures. To function at all, their brains must filter aggressively, ignoring most input to focus on what matters. Cuttlefish insert themselves into the ignored category, then weaponize the filter itself. This is not accidental. Studies of cuttlefish behavior show that they adjust their displays based on prey type, distance, and environmental conditions. Patterns used in open sand differ from those used near complex reefs. Speed, frequency, and contrast are tuned dynamically. The cuttlefish is not flashing randomly. It is tailoring a signal designed to confuse a specific visual system at a specific moment. The nervous system that enables this is extraordinary. Large portions of the cuttlefish brain are dedicated to visual processing and skin control, allowing near instantaneous translation of perception into display. This feedback loop operates faster than conscious thought, creating a predator that reacts not just quickly, but preemptively. In evolutionary terms, this places cuttlefish in a unique position. They are neither pure ambush predators nor pursuit hunters. They are manipulators of perception. Their success depends not on overpowering prey, but on misdirecting it at the precise instant where choice collapses. The environment reinforces this advantage. Shallow coastal waters and reef margins are visually noisy. Light refracts. Particles drift. Shadows overlap. In such settings, clarity is rare, and certainty even rarer. The cuttlefish thrives here because it understands that confusion is already present. It merely amplifies it. There is also a metabolic advantage to this method. Cuttlefish do not need to expend energy chasing prey over long distances. The hunt is short, contained, and efficient. Energy saved can be invested in rapid growth, reproduction, or further refinement of sensory capabilities. This efficiency helps explain why cuttlefish populations can be resilient despite heavy predation pressure themselves. Yet for all their sophistication, cuttlefish are not invulnerable. Their soft bodies make them targets for larger predators, and their reliance on short bursts of activity means they must return quickly to camouflage after feeding. This vulnerability reinforces the need for certainty. A failed strike is not just a missed meal, it is a risk. This is why the hypnotic phase is so critical. The cuttlefish does not strike until conditions are optimal. Distance is exact. Angle is correct. Prey orientation favors immediate pull-in. The visual display builds until the prey's attention is compromised, then ends abruptly as the tentacles launch. The transition from illusion to violence is instantaneous. From the prey's perspective, the experience is incomprehensible. There is no gradual escalation of threat, no approach to flee from. One moment the world is readable, the next it is not. The brain fails to predict what happens next, and that failure costs everything. In broader ecological terms, this hunting style influences how prey species evolve visual processing strategies. Fish that share habitat with cuttlefish often develop heightened sensitivity to pattern changes or learn to avoid certain visual anomalies entirely. But adaptation is slow, and cuttlefish displays continue to evolve in response, maintaining the advantage. There is a quiet irony here. The reef rewards animals that can interpret complexity, yet the cuttlefish uses complexity itself as a weapon. It does not simplify the environment to reveal danger. It adds just enough noise to hide it. After the kill, the cuttlefish fades back into the background. Skin patterns flatten, colors dull. Texture returns to mimicry. The predator disappears into the reef as completely as it emerged, leaving no trace except absence. This is the magic trick. The hand distracts. The eye follows. The moment passes. And when attention returns to where it should have been all along, the outcome has already been decided. The river does not look dangerous when it is calm. Brown water slides past tree roots and fallen branches with the patience of something that has always been there and always will be. Light filters through a canopy thick enough to dull the sun, breaking into fragments that drift across the surface like lost reflections. Fish move beneath the waterline in loose, shifting groups, their silhouettes appearing and vanishing with the current. This is not an arena of obvious predators and prey. It is a crowded system, dense with life, where survival depends less on strength than on timing, awareness, and restraint. And when restraint breaks, Panic becomes the most lethal force in the river. Piranhas do not hunt like solitary killers. They do not stalk, ambush, or overpower through size. Individually, they are modest fish, built for quick acceleration and sharp turns rather than endurance or dominance. Their power emerges only in context, when many individuals respond to the same signal at the same moment. The danger of piranhas is not located in teeth alone. It is located in feedback. The river is a sensory environment. Visibility is limited by sediment and tannins. Sound travels irregularly. Chemical signals, however, move freely, diffusing through the water column with relentless efficiency. Blood, stress hormones, damaged tissue, and sudden movements all alter the chemical profile of the water. In a crowded system, these changes are noticed immediately. Piranhas are exquisitely sensitive to them. Most of the time, this sensitivity serves restraint rather than aggression. Piranhas are opportunists. They feed on insects, fruit, plant matter, carrion, and small fish. They are not constantly attacking everything around them. In fact, much of their survival depends on avoiding unnecessary risk in an environment filled with larger predators. The swarm is not permanently violent. It is conditionally violent. What triggers escalation is not hunger alone. It is disturbance. A struggling animal releases more than blood. It releases chemical markers associated with stress and muscle fatigue. Rapid movement displaces water in erratic patterns that signal vulnerability. The river, which moments earlier was a stable background of mixed cues, suddenly becomes biased toward one conclusion. Something is failing. The first bite is rarely decisive. It is exploratory, opportunistic, often taken at the edge of the prey's body, where resistance is lowest. A fin, a tail, a flank already compromised by exhaustion or injury. This bite does not kill. It destabilizes. The prey reacts instinctively, thrashing to escape. This response is exactly what accelerates the collapse. Muscle contractions spike. Oxygen demand rises. Lactic acid accumulates. Small injuries bleed more under stress. The water becomes saturated with signals that amplify the initial response. This is where the swarm forms. Nearby piranhas alter course. Not because they see a target clearly, but because the water itself has changed. Chemical gradients pull them in. Vibrations guide them closer. Visual cues confirm what chemistry already suggested. A focal point emerges. Once enough individuals converge, the dynamic shifts from opportunism to collective behavior. No single piranha controls the attack. There is no leader, no coordination beyond shared response thresholds. Each fish reacts to the behavior of those around it. A bite increases agitation. Agitation triggers more bites. Movement becomes chaotic, and chaos feeds itself. This is the crowd horror of the river. The prey is not fighting an attacker. It is fighting an atmosphere. Every movement it makes intensifies the very conditions that draw more attention. Every attempt to flee creates turbulence that excites the swarm. The water becomes hostile not because of what is in it, but because of how it is reacting. Bites are fast and shallow, designed for removal rather than holding. Piranha teeth are triangular, razor-sharp, and self-sharpening, perfectly suited for slicing rather than tearing. A single bite removes a piece of tissue quickly and cleanly, minimizing resistance and allowing the fish to disengage instantly. This is not about grappling or restraint. It is about cumulative damage delivered faster than the prey can compensate. As bites accumulate, the prey's ability to swim degrades rapidly. Fin damage reduces propulsion efficiency. Muscle fatigue increases. Orientation falters. Panic compounds exhaustion. In water, where locomotion is continuous and failure is immediate, this spiral is unforgiving. Importantly, the swarm does not need to inflict catastrophic injury to succeed. It only needs to prevent recovery. A fish that cannot stabilize its swimming pattern becomes easy to surround. A mammal that cannot reach the bank quickly enough becomes trapped in midstream. The swarm closes not through intent, but through probability. From an ecological standpoint, this feeding strategy is tightly regulated by context. Piranha swarms do not indiscriminately attack healthy animals moving calmly through the water. Most encounters that escalate involve pre-existing weakness, injury, illness, entrapment, seasonal stress during low water periods when resources are concentrated and escape routes are limited. This conditional aggression plays a critical role in river ecosystems. By removing weakened individuals quickly, piranhas act as population regulators, reducing the spread of disease and preventing resource drain. They are not agents of random destruction. They are accelerants of failure. Yet for the individual caught in that failure, the distinction is meaningless. The river offers no structure to hide behind once the swarm forms. Unlike reef environments, there are no crevices or walls to block approach. Vegetation may slow movement, but it also increases entanglement and stress. Open water becomes a stage where every movement is visible, every vibration amplified. As the swarm intensifies, competition among piranhas increases. Each fish attempts to take advantage of the moment before the opportunity ends. This competition further increases agitation, making bites more frequent and less selective. The prey is not targeted methodically. It is eroded. This erosion is rapid because exhaustion is not linear. Once muscle performance drops below a certain threshold, recovery becomes impossible without rest, and rest is impossible under attack. The prey's nervous system floods with stress hormones, accelerating heart rate and oxygen consumption. Gills or lungs struggle to keep up. Coordination fails. Collapse follows. From the outside, this process can look sudden. A moment of disturbance, then violent activity, then stillness. But within the system, it is a cascade built on feedback loops that evolve precisely because they are efficient. Piranhas themselves are not immune to fear. The same sensitivity that draws them to vulnerability also keeps them cautious. They rarely attack in clear water with high visibility and low crowd density. They are aware of larger predators and retreat quickly when threatened. The swarm exists in a narrow window where risk is outweighed by reward. That window can open unexpectedly. Flood cycles alter river geometry, concentrating fish into shrinking pools during dry seasons. Migration bottlenecks increase density. Spawning events create surges of movement and stress. Under these conditions, the threshold for escalation lowers. What would normally be ignored becomes amplified. In these moments, the river's mood changes. This is the most unsettling aspect of piranha predation. It is not predictable in the way ambush predators are. It does not rely on specific locations or structures. It relies on collective state. Calm water is safe. Agitated water is not. The transition between the two can be instant. For humans, this dynamic is often misunderstood. Piranhas are mythologized as relentless killers, when in reality they are sensitive barometers of ecological stress. Most human encounters that turn dangerous involve splashing, struggling, or entering water during conditions that favor swarm behavior. The danger arises not from being present, but from becoming a signal. Once a signal forms, the system responds without mercy. The prey's final struggle is not against teeth, but against entropy. Energy drains faster than it can be replaced. The body cannot stabilize. The water continues to react. The swarm maintains pressure not because it is organized, but because it does not need to be. Eventually, movement stops. Without motion, the chemical signals dissipate. The swarm loses focus. Individuals peel away, returning to opportunistic feeding patterns. The river calms. What remains is processed by scavengers and microbes, folded back into the system. The horror, if it can be called that, is not in gore or spectacle. It is in the realization that danger here is not a creature, but a condition. You are not being hunted by one mind or one body. You are being consumed by a state change in the environment. In the piranha's world, survival depends on staying out of that state. And once you fall into it, there is no opponent to outmaneuver, no single force to resist. There is only the crowd, and the water agreeing with it. The bottom is never empty. In rivers, lakes, estuaries, and coastal shallows, What looks like open space near the substrate is crowded with lives adapted to being overlooked. Light is weaker here. Vision is unreliable. Shapes blur into sediment and shadow. In this layer of the water column, survival does not belong exclusively to the fast or the aggressive. It belongs to the prepared. And among the most underestimated preparations in aquatic ecosystems are those of the catfish. Animals that do not chase danger, but make danger regret choosing them. Catfish rarely look threatening. Their bodies are soft, often rounded, lacking the obvious armor of shells or the dramatic teeth of apex predators. Many species move slowly, spending long periods resting on the bottom or drifting close to cover. Their faces, framed by long sensory barbels, appear passive, almost curious. To predators scanning for easy prey, this appearance can be dangerously misleading. The catfish is not a hunter built for spectacle. It is a lesson built for consequences. The defining feature of this lesson is embedded in the fins. Along the leading edges of the dorsal and pectoral fins, many catfish species possess hardened spines, rigid, sharp, and capable of locking into place. These spines are not flexible rays like those of most fish. They are structural weapons, designed to resist compression and punish contact. When threatened, a catfish can erect these spines outward, transforming its body from a soft target into an angular hazard that is difficult to swallow and painful to bite. The mechanics are simple but unforgiving. When a predator lunges and clamps down incorrectly, the spines dig in. Because they are positioned at angles that oppose inward pressure, they can lodge into the predator's mouth, throat, or gill arches. In some species, grooves along the spines deliver venom, introducing toxins directly into the wound. This venom is not intended to kill large predators. Its purpose is to amplify pain, inflammation, and motor impairment, turning a mistake into a deterrent. The predator experiences this instantly. A bite that should have ended the encounter becomes a source of injury. The catfish, still alive, may thrash or lock its spines further, increasing damage. The predator is forced into a decision under stress: continue applying pressure and worsen the injury, or release and retreat. In most cases, retreat wins. This is the reversal that makes catfish so effective. They weaponize the predator's own attack. The act of biting becomes the mistake. The prey does not need to outswim or outfight its attacker. It needs only to be bitten incorrectly once. This strategy works because aquatic predation often relies on speed and suction rather than careful handling. Many predators engulf prey whole or clamp quickly to prevent escape, assuming that soft-bodied fish will collapse under pressure. Catfish exploit this assumption. Their spines punish haste. Predators that rely on reflex rather than inspection are the ones most likely to be injured. The pain caused by catfish spines is not trivial. Venomous species can cause intense localized pain, swelling, muscle cramping, and in some cases, systemic effects such as nausea or weakness. For a predator that depends on precise mouth function and gill efficiency to survive, even temporary impairment is dangerous. An injured jaw reduces feeding ability. Damaged gill tissue compromises oxygen intake. The cost of a single bad bite can extend far beyond the moment of contact. From an ecological perspective, this defensive adaptation shapes predator behavior across entire systems. Predators that share habitat with spined catfish learn to recognize their silhouette, movement patterns, or chemical cues. They adjust hunting strategies, targeting other species first, or altering bite angles to avoid spines. In some cases, predators specialize in flipping catfish or striking from behind, but these techniques require experience and carry risk. Many predators simply choose easier prey. This avoidance has ripple effects. By being difficult to consume, catfish reduce predation pressure on themselves and indirectly increase it on other species. They become stable components of benthic communities, persistent even in heavily pressured environments. Their survival is not based on speed or concealment alone, but on reliability. Predators learn that attacking them is rarely worth the cost. Catfish also benefit from another layer of defense: sensory awareness. Their barbels are densely packed with taste and touch receptors, allowing them to detect vibrations, chemical signals, and movement in turbid water where vision fails. This awareness gives them early warning of approaching threats. While they may not flee immediately, they can orient their bodies to present spines effectively, maximizing deterrence at the critical moment. In some environments, this deterrence becomes dramatic. There are documented cases of catfish becoming lodged in the throats of predators that attempted to swallow them whole. The spines lock outward, preventing the predator from closing its mouth or expelling the prey easily. The predator may suffocate or starve as a result. These outcomes are rare, but they reinforce the lesson evolution is teaching. The prey is not passive. The prey is armed. This dynamic introduces a darker symmetry into aquatic food webs. Predation is not a one-directional process where hunters always hold the advantage. It is a negotiation, enforced by anatomy and consequence. Every attack carries risk. Every meal is a calculation. Catfish raise the cost of being careless. The phrase, "the ocean is full of traps on both sides," is not metaphorical here. The same environment that hides ambush predators also hides defensive hazards. A predator navigating murky water must consider not only whether it can catch something, but whether catching it will cause injury. This constant evaluation slows hunting, reduces efficiency, and influences which species dominate which niches. Catfish themselves are not invincible. Their defenses are situational. A predator that approaches from the right angle, avoids the spines, or attacks when the catfish is distracted can still succeed. Juveniles are more vulnerable. Some predators specialize in overcoming the spines, but specialization is rare, and rarity preserves the catfish's advantage. Beyond defense, catfish play vital ecological roles as scavengers, detritivores, and opportunistic feeders. They consume dead material, regulate insect populations, and recycle nutrients from the bottom upward. Their persistence ensures that energy does not stagnate in sediments. Their survival strategies allow them to remain present long enough to perform these functions reliably. This persistence is why catfish are found in such diverse environments, from fast-flowing rivers to stagnant swamps, from freshwater lakes to coastal estuaries. Their bodies tolerate low oxygen levels. Their feeding strategies are flexible. Their defenses compensate for their lack of speed. They are not optimized for dominance, but for endurance. The dark twist of their story is that danger does not always belong to the aggressor. In many aquatic encounters, the predator leaves injured and the prey survives, if only briefly. That injury may reduce the predator's future success, making it more cautious, more selective, or more vulnerable to other threats. The ripple effects extend beyond a single interaction. In this way, catfish function as teachers in the ecosystem. They reinforce a rule that governs life below the surface. Assumption is expensive. What looks harmless may not be. What looks slow may be costly. The environment does not reward confidence without verification. For observers, this challenges the simplistic view of food chains as linear hierarchies. The reality is closer to a web of conditional risks, where strength, speed, and teeth are only part of the equation. Pain, injury, and long-term impairment matter just as much. Survival belongs to those who minimize all of them. When a predator releases a catfish and backs away, the moment passes quietly. There is no dramatic chase, no visible victory. The catfish sinks back to the bottom, spines folding down, body relaxing into stillness. The predator swims off, carrying a memory encoded in pain. That memory alters future decisions. That alteration shapes the ecosystem. The trap has worked. And somewhere nearby, another predator is watching, recalibrating its understanding of what is safe to eat in a world where even the prey can fight back. The reef does not move away from you here. It does not flee, circle, or give chase. It waits. Colorful tentacles sway gently in the current, catching light in slow, hypnotic rhythms that suggest passivity rather than threat. Sea anemones look like plants pretending to be animals, anchored to rock, rooted in place, exposed. In ecosystems defined by speed, teeth, and motion, they appear defenseless. That appearance is not just wrong, it is lethal. The danger of a sea anemone is not something you see coming. It is something that happens the instant you touch it, before the nervous system has time to ask why. Each tentacle is lined with millions of microscopic weapons called nematocysts. These are not toxins that seep or spines that stab slowly. They are pressurized capsules, each containing a tightly coiled filament tipped with a barb. When triggered, the capsule fires faster than any voluntary movement, faster than muscle contraction, faster than conscious thought. Contact is the trigger. Pressure. Chemical signature. The faintest brush of living tissue. The harpoon launches automatically. The prey never registers the strike itself. There is no sensation of being stabbed, no localized point of impact to focus on. Instead, failure begins elsewhere. Muscles stop responding correctly. Coordination degrades. Movement becomes heavy, delayed, unreliable. The body feels intact, but it does not behave the way it should. The prey does not understand that it has been attacked, only that something fundamental has gone wrong. This is the genius of nematocysts. They do not announce themselves through pain alone. They sabotage physiology quietly and immediately. When the nematocyst fires, the filament penetrates the prey's outer tissue and delivers venom directly into cells and nerve endings. This venom varies among anemone species, but its effects are broadly similar. It disrupts ion channels in nerve membranes, interfering with electrical signaling. Muscles receive garbled instructions. Nerves misfire. Reflexes slow or fail entirely. Paralysis does not arrive as a clean switch. It spreads unevenly, creating a sense of internal confusion rather than obvious injury. For small fish or invertebrates, this confusion is enough. The tentacles close reflexively around the prey, not squeezing in a way that crushes, but draping and folding to increase contact surface. Each additional touch triggers more nematocysts. The prey's attempts to escape only worsen the problem. Struggling increases tentacle contact. Contact increases venom delivery. The feedback loop accelerates collapse. This is why anemones create true no-touch zones. The space around their tentacles is not neutral. It is weaponized. Prey species that drift too close do not have the luxury of testing boundaries. There is no warning nip or missed strike. The first contact is already too much. The environment amplifies this effect. Many anemones live in areas of complex water flow where currents push small organisms unpredictably. A fish grazing algae near a rock face may be nudged sideways by a surge it did not anticipate. A drifting larva may be carried into tentacles without ever actively swimming toward them. The anemone does not need to pursue. It relies on physics and probability. Once contact occurs, escape becomes progressively less likely. Paralysis reduces swimming efficiency. Fins beat out of sync. The prey may still move, but its movements lack direction and power. Panic increases oxygen demand at exactly the moment gill function is compromised by venom. The body enters metabolic debt. Weakness spreads faster. The anemone itself remains anchored, unmoving, almost indifferent. It does not rush the process. There is no need. The tentacles continue their slow, fluid motion, brushing against the prey again and again, reinforcing the chemical assault. Eventually, the prey is guided toward the central mouth, where it is engulfed and digested externally before being drawn inside. From an ecological perspective, this predation strategy is profoundly efficient. Sea anemones do not spend energy chasing prey. They do not need speed, strength, or complex coordination. Their success depends on reliability. The automatic nature of nematocyst firing ensures that every appropriate contact produces a response. There is no hesitation. There is no decision-making. The system is purely mechanical and chemical. This automation is what makes the encounter so dark. The prey is not outmatched by intelligence or force. It is erased by a reflex embedded in the environment itself. The anemone does not need to know what it has touched. It does not need to assess size, threat, or value. The weapon fires regardless. The evolutionary roots of this system run deep. Cnidarians, the group that includes anemones, jellyfish, and corals, are among the oldest animal lineages still alive. Their nervous systems are decentralized and simple by vertebrate standards. But simplicity here is not weakness. It is robustness. The nematocyst system has persisted for hundreds of millions of years because it works in almost any context where soft-bodied prey exists. What changes between species is not the basic mechanism, but the chemistry. Some anemones deliver venom optimized for rapid paralysis of fish. Others target crustaceans. Some are strong enough to affect much larger animals, causing intense pain and tissue damage. The common thread is that the venom does not need to kill instantly. It only needs to prevent effective escape. This is why anemones are often surrounded by a halo of absence. Small fish avoid brushing past them. Invertebrates skirt their tentacles carefully. The area immediately around an anemone is a dead zone, where movement patterns change subtly but persistently. Over time, this shapes reef traffic, carving invisible boundaries into the ecosystem. There is a cruel irony here. The most visually striking anemones are often the most dangerous. Bright colors advertise presence, but they also attract curious grazers and drifting larvae. The tentacles wave invitingly, indistinguishable from harmless soft corals or plants to inexperienced prey. The line between attraction and annihilation is thin and unforgiving. Yet not all animals are equally vulnerable. Some species, like clownfish, have evolved resistance to anemone venom through specialized mucus coatings that prevent nematocyst firing. These fish move freely among tentacles that would paralyze others. Their presence creates the illusion that the anemone is safe. Prey observing clownfish darting unharmed between tentacles may misinterpret the zone as benign. This misinterpretation can be fatal. The symbiosis benefits the anemone as well. Clownfish drive away some predators, bring food scraps, and improve water circulation around the tentacles. But the anemone's weapons remain active. The no-touch zone still exists. The harpoons are still armed. They simply do not fire on the wrong targets. This selective danger reinforces one of the ocean's harshest lessons. Safety is relative. What is harmless to one species may be lethal to another. Observing survival does not guarantee permission to follow. For the prey caught in the tentacles, awareness fades gradually. The body stops responding the way memory says it should. Movements feel delayed. Direction becomes uncertain. Panic sets in, not because pain is overwhelming, but because control is slipping away without explanation. The prey does not know it has been poisoned. It only knows it is failing. By the time the mouth closes around it, the fight is already over. In this sense, sea anemones are less predators than automated systems. They do not stalk. They do not chase. They do not adapt behavior mid-attack. They simply exist in a state where contact equals consequence. The reef itself enforces the rule. This makes anemones particularly dangerous to naive animals, newly settled juveniles, or displaced organisms carried by currents into unfamiliar habitats. Experience matters here. Recognition matters. Those who cannot read the warning signals embedded in shape, motion, or chemical trace pay immediately. The darkness of the anemone's predation lies in its invisibility as violence. There is no dramatic moment to react to, no clear signal to flee from. The prey is not overwhelmed by force. It is dismantled by process. The tentacles sway. The current shifts. Contact happens. And then the body stops working the way it should. In ecosystems full of obvious dangers, the sea anemone represents a different kind of threat. One that does not pursue, does not announce itself, and does not care who you are. The harpoons fire automatically. The weakness spreads quietly. And the reef continues to look peaceful to anyone watching from a distance, unaware that within the tentacles, failure has already begun. The seabed rarely announces danger. It stretches outward in muted colors and gradual contours, a landscape shaped by time rather than urgency. Here, movement is slow, deliberate, almost polite. Nothing lunges, nothing charges. For many animals, this calm is deceptive comfort. In a world where predators are expected to be fast, sharp, and obvious, The slow ones slip past instinctual alarms entirely. And among the slowest, most underestimated hunters on the ocean floor is the starfish. At first glance, a starfish barely qualifies as an animal in the way most creatures understand the term. It has no head, no eyes in the conventional sense, no jaws, no teeth. Its body radiates outward symmetrically, arms spreading like petals pressed flat against rock or sand. It does not chase. It does not stalk. It does not even seem to move unless watched for a very long time. This appearance has allowed it to persist largely unnoticed for hundreds of millions of years. But what the starfish lacks in speed or spectacle, it compensates for with a method of feeding that is among the most unsettling in the ocean. The danger of a starfish is not immediate. It does not arrive as pain or panic. It arrives as pressure and patience. Starfish feed primarily on animals that cannot flee quickly: clams, mussels, oysters, snails, and other shelled invertebrates. These prey species evolved armor for a reason. Their shells protect against crushing jaws, slicing teeth, and sudden attacks. They are designed to withstand force. What they are not designed to withstand is persistence. When a starfish encounters a shellfish, there is no rush. The starfish settles over the shell, positioning itself so that multiple arms make contact with the surface. Along the underside of each arm are hundreds of tube feet, tiny, flexible appendages ending in suction-like discs. These are not muscles in the traditional sense. They operate hydraulically, controlled by a water vascular system that allows the starfish to apply steady, even pressure over long periods without fatigue. Each tube foot attaches to the shell surface with subtle adhesion. Individually, they are weak. Together, they form a distributed grip capable of exerting remarkable force. The starfish does not pry or crack. It pulls. Shellfish survive by keeping their shells closed, sealing soft tissue safely inside. Closing muscles contract, holding the two halves together with strength proportional to the threat. Against sudden attacks, this works. Against slow, unrelenting force, it fails. The starfish begins to pull, almost imperceptibly. Tube feet extend, contract, reattach, and pull again, each movement adding a fraction of force. Minutes pass, then hours. The shellfish responds by maintaining closure, expending energy to keep muscles contracted. This is where the imbalance begins. The shellfish must actively resist. The starfish does not. Hydraulic pressure in the starfish's tube feet is sustained by ambient seawater and internal fluid systems. As long as the starfish remains alive and attached, it can continue pulling with minimal energy loss. The shellfish, meanwhile, burns through reserves, oxygen demand rising as muscles remain engaged. There is no moment of dramatic failure. There is only gradual exhaustion. Eventually, the shell opens, not wide, not suddenly, but by a fraction. A gap no thicker than a sliver of light. For the shellfish, this is catastrophic. The starfish senses the change immediately. Tube feet reposition, stabilizing the opening. The prey attempts to close again, but fatigue has compromised its strength. The gap remains. That gap is all the starfish needs. From the center of its body, the starfish extends its stomach outward through its mouth, everting it like a soft, pale sac. This stomach slips into the narrow opening between the shell halves, conforming to the space with unsettling precision. The starfish does not need to open the shell fully. It inserts itself into the prey. Once inside, digestion begins externally. Digestive enzymes flood the stomach lining, breaking down the prey's tissues where they sit. There is no bite, no tearing. Chemistry does the work. Muscle, connective tissue, and internal organs dissolve gradually, absorbed directly into the starfish's digestive system. The shellfish is alive during this process, its nervous system still functioning, its body responding weakly to stimuli. It cannot escape. It cannot close its shell. It cannot expel the invader. This is not predation as an event. It is predation as a condition. The slowness is what makes it disturbing. Hours pass as the process continues. The starfish remains motionless, anchored by tube feet, while digestion proceeds quietly inside another living animal. There is no blood in the water, no thrashing. To an observer, nothing appears to be happening. The ocean floor looks unchanged, yet inside the shell, chemistry is dismantling life piece by piece. From an evolutionary perspective, this strategy is brutally effective. Shell-building prey invested heavily in structural defense, assuming that protection against force was sufficient. The starfish bypassed force entirely. It evolved patience instead. Over geological time, this method proved so reliable that starfish diversified into countless species, occupying habitats from shallow reefs to deep-sea plains. The water vascular system that powers tube feet is central to this success. It allows precise control of pressure, fine motor coordination, and sustained effort without muscle fatigue. Tube feet are also sensory organs, capable of detecting chemical signals, texture, and subtle movement. The starfish does not guess where to pull. It feels for weakness, adjusting grip dynamically until the prey yields. This sensory capability extends beyond feeding. Starfish can detect chemical cues released by injured or stressed shellfish, homing in on vulnerable prey. In dense shellfish beds, this can trigger chain reactions, with multiple starfish converging on areas of weakness. The result is not a sudden massacre, but a slow thinning of populations over time. Ecologically, starfish are regulators. By preying on dominant shellfish species, they prevent any one organism from monopolizing space and resources. This maintains biodiversity, allowing other species to establish themselves. In this sense, the starfish is a keystone predator, shaping entire communities through slow, persistent pressure rather than dramatic kills. But for the individual prey, this broader balance offers no comfort. The shellfish's experience is one of prolonged failure. Muscles weaken. Internal systems shut down as enzymes dissolve tissue. Sensory input fades. The body is consumed without ever being fully removed from its protective shell. The armor that once guaranteed survival becomes a chamber where death unfolds invisibly. The darkness of this process lies in how little resistance it provokes from instinct. There is no sudden pain spike to trigger escape responses. There is no clear moment to fight back. The prey's systems are overwhelmed quietly, steadily, without spectacle. Starfish themselves are not invulnerable. They can be preyed upon, flipped over, or damaged by predators that know how to exploit their soft undersides. Some fish tear off arms, relying on the starfish's regenerative ability to survive partial loss. This regeneration is another evolutionary adaptation that complements their feeding strategy. Losing an arm is survivable. Feeding slowly reduces exposure. Together, these traits favor endurance over aggression. The regenerative ability adds another unsettling dimension. A starfish can survive injuries that would kill most animals, continuing to feed and function while regrowing lost parts. In some cases, a severed arm can regenerate into an entirely new individual. This resilience reinforces their presence in ecosystems, making them difficult to eliminate even when conditions turn hostile. In colder waters, where metabolism slows further, the feeding process becomes even more prolonged. Digestion takes longer. Pulling takes longer. Everything stretches in time. The ocean's slow killers thrive here, where patience is not just advantageous but necessary. For humans, the idea of being eaten from the outside challenges deeply held assumptions about danger. We expect threats to be sudden, violent, and obvious. The starfish violates all of these expectations. It is a reminder that not all lethal processes are fast, and not all predators announce themselves. On the seafloor, time itself can be a weapon. When the feeding is complete, the starfish retracts its stomach, now filled with nutrients absorbed directly from the prey. The empty shell remains, often intact, giving little indication of what occurred within. Scavengers may later investigate, but the primary event leaves almost no trace. The starfish moves on, its slow, steady motion resuming across the substrate. To the ecosystem, this is routine. To the prey, it was unavoidable once contact was made. The ocean does not rely solely on speed, venom, or violence to kill. It also employs endurance, chemistry, and indifference. The starfish embodies this quieter brutality, a predator that proves survival is not always about outrunning danger. Sometimes it is about never letting go. And on the ocean floor, where nothing happens quickly and everything eventually yields, that may be the most terrifying strategy of all. The seafloor looks forgiving at first. Soft sediment, scattered shells, drifting shadows of fish passing overhead. Life here moves slowly, deliberately, shaped by gravity and time rather than urgency. Among the detritus and algae lies an animal so unassuming it barely registers as alive. Cylindrical, pliant, often mottled to match sand or rock, the sea cucumber appears to be part of the landscape rather than a participant in it. It does not flee. It does not chase. It does not posture. In a world obsessed with speed and violence, the sea cucumber seems defenseless. That assumption is its greatest protection. Sea cucumbers occupy a strange ecological position. They are recyclers, processors of waste, living filters that ingest sediment and organic debris, extracting nutrients and returning cleaner sand to the ecosystem. Their feeding is methodical and continuous, a slow conveyor belt of intake and excretion that stabilizes benthic environments. They have no claws, no jaws capable of biting, no spines to threaten attackers at a distance. Their bodies are soft, flexible, easily grasped. To many predators, especially fish and invertebrates accustomed to seizing slow prey, the sea cucumber looks like an effortless meal, until it is touched. For most of its life, a sea cucumber relies on camouflage and chemical invisibility. Its skin often contains compounds that discourage casual investigation, subtle enough to be ignored by currents and diluted quickly in water. Its movements are minimal. Its posture is non-threatening. Predators pass by uninterested. But when contact escalates to attack, when the animal is bitten, squeezed, or torn from the substrate, the sea cucumber transitions instantly from passive recycler to emergency weapon. The defense is not elegant. It is desperate, visceral, and profoundly unsettling. Some species of sea cucumber possess specialized internal organs called Cuvierian tubules. These structures are stored coiled inside the body cavity, attached near the rear. Under normal conditions, they serve no external purpose. They are invisible, inert, waiting. When the sea cucumber experiences severe stress or physical damage, muscles contract powerfully, and the animal ejects these tubules through its rear opening into the surrounding water. What emerges is not subtle. The tubules unfurl explosively, expanding into long, sticky, thread-like masses that cling to anything they touch. Water does not wash them away easily. They adhere to surfaces, wrap around limbs, tangle jaws, and bind mouthparts together. For a predator that has already committed to an attack, this sudden release creates immediate mechanical chaos. The mouth becomes fouled. Gills clog. Movement becomes restricted. The predator is not injured in the traditional sense, but it is compromised. Panic sets in. The predator attempts to shake free, thrashing or retreating, but the tubules stretch and stick further, entangling fins, antennae, or appendages. The more the predator struggles, the worse the entanglement becomes. This buys the sea cucumber time. Time to survive. Time to be dropped. Time for the predator to decide that whatever this is, it is not worth continuing. But the tubules are only part of the defense. Many sea cucumbers also possess potent chemical deterrents embedded in their tissues and released into the water during stress. These toxins, often saponins known as holothurins, disrupt cell membranes and interfere with physiological processes in nearby animals. In sufficient concentration, they can cause severe irritation, paralysis, or death in fish. Even at lower doses, they create an environment that predators instinctively avoid. The release of these chemicals transforms the immediate area around the sea cucumber into a hostile zone. Fish recoil. Invertebrates retreat. The water itself becomes dangerous, carrying compounds that signal toxicity at a fundamental biological level. This is not a targeted weapon aimed at a specific attacker. It is an area denial strategy. Everything nearby is warned or punished. From the predator's perspective, The experience is deeply confusing. What appeared to be an inert, harmless body suddenly becomes sticky, chemically aggressive, and unmanageable. The sensory cues do not align with expectations. There is no clean bite and release option. The predator must disengage completely or risk further impairment. For many predators, that decision is immediate. The sea cucumber is dropped, abandoned, avoided in the future. This defense comes at a cost. Ejecting tubules and releasing toxins is energetically expensive. In some species, the sea cucumber may also expel portions of its digestive system in the process. Recovery can take weeks or months, during which the animal is vulnerable and unable to feed normally. This is not a strategy used lightly. It is a last resort. And yet, it works. The effectiveness of this defense reshapes predator behavior across entire habitats. Fish learn to recognize sea cucumber shapes and textures, associating them with unpleasant outcomes. Even species that are physically capable of consuming sea cucumbers often choose not to, preferring prey that does not retaliate chemically or mechanically. Over time, this avoidance reinforces the sea cucumber's survival, allowing it to persist despite its apparent vulnerability. There is a deeper ecological consequence here. By surviving predation attempts, sea cucumbers continue their role as sediment processors. Their feeding activity oxygenates the sea floor, redistributes nutrients, and supports microbial communities essential to benthic health. Removing them from the system leads to sediment compaction, reduced nutrient cycling, and long-term ecosystem degradation. Their defenses do not merely protect the individual, they stabilize the environment. The darkness of this interaction lies in its inversion of expectations. We are conditioned to associate danger with aggression, with visible weaponry, with speed. The sea cucumber violates this narrative completely. Its defense is hidden, internal, and revealed only when boundaries are crossed. There is no warning display, no bright coloration advertising toxicity. The punishment arrives after the mistake, not before. For the attacker, this can be catastrophic. In confined spaces or low-flow environments, toxin release can linger, affecting multiple animals. There are documented cases where a single stressed sea cucumber has killed nearby fish in aquaria or tide pools through chemical release alone. In the wild, currents dilute these effects more quickly, but the message remains clear. The sea cucumber is not safe to handle. This reality introduces a psychological layer to predation in the ocean. Animals do not merely learn what to eat, they learn what not to touch. Avoidance becomes encoded not through direct observation, but through shared chemical signals and evolutionary memory. The ocean remembers danger in ways that are invisible to us. The sea cucumber's body plan supports this strategy. Its skin is thick, leathery, reinforced with microscopic ossicles that provide structure without rigidity. This allows it to withstand squeezing and partial damage without rupturing immediately. Its nervous system is decentralized, capable of functioning even when parts of the body are compromised. Regeneration is common. Lost tissues can be regrown. Survival does not require pristine condition, only continuity. This resilience complements the last resort defense perfectly. The sea cucumber can afford to sacrifice parts of itself if it means living through the encounter. Few predators are willing to pay the price required to finish the meal. There is an irony here that borders on dark humor. The animal that looks the least threatening in the room is often the one with the most unpleasant surprises. Brightly colored reef fish advertise danger openly. Venomous creatures posture and warn. The sea cucumber does neither. It allows assumptions to form, then punishes them. This pattern repeats throughout the ocean. Innocuous appearances hide lethal capacities. Soft bodies conceal chemical arsenals. Slowness masks endurance. The ecosystem rewards those who underestimate at their own peril. As the encounter ends, the sea cucumber lies still once more, tubules spent, toxins dissipating. The water clears. Other animals cautiously return. To an untrained eye, nothing seems changed. The seafloor looks peaceful again. But the lesson has been delivered. In the final accounting, The sea cucumber embodies a truth that ties every chapter of this ocean together. Danger does not always chase you. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it dissolves you slowly. Sometimes it punishes curiosity instead of provoking fear. Survival in the sea depends not on recognizing obvious threats, but on respecting the unknown. In the ocean, cuteness is camouflage.